Good afternoon and welcome once again to our weekly media briefing and public health update with Montgomery County Executive Mark Elrich. Joining the executive today is Dr. Earl Stoddard, Assistant Chief Administrative Officer, as well as Dr. James Bridgers, Director of the Department of Health and Human Services. Mr. Sean O'Donnell, Acting Deputy Chief of Public Health Services for the Department of Health and Human Services. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today. And we do have a special guest today is the Director of the Department of Permitting Services, Mr. Rabia Savakan. Good afternoon, everybody, members of the media. We are recording this meeting. And with that, Mr. County Executive, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. I'm joining you today a day later than usual because yesterday was the annual meeting and awards for the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, or better known as COG by many people. We talked about some of the top regional issues, and as you can imagine, Metro was a big issue yesterday, and more on that a little bit later in this. I was also encouraged by yesterday's news from the Federal Reserve that interest rates will continue to hold where they are, which is too high, but better than going up, with a likelihood of reductions coming in 2024. This should help restart the housing market, which has gone stagnant for a while now because of the higher interest rates. Despite the housing struggles, revenue from income taxes and property taxes have been a positive for Montgomery County thanks to higher wages and business growth, and more than offset drops in recordation and transfer taxes caused by the imposition of these ridiculous interest rates by the Fed. This afternoon, we're going to receive the state revenue estimates, and I'm pretty optimistic they're going to be higher than was previously estimated. This evening, Dr. McKnight will propose her FY25 budget. My understanding is it will not include the kind of increases that created the problems that they did last year. These two figures are going to make a very impactful impact on the budget choices we have to make over the coming weeks. While there are many economic forces, budgets and processes that we can't control, there are still things we can do to control, such as our permitting process, which is what I want to focus on a little bit today. Since becoming county executive 5 years ago, soon after that, Councilmember Sidney Katz and I went around the county, listened to business leaders, and gathering feedback for improvements. And we very bluntly asked them to tell us what is wrong with what we're doing. Many people wanted an easier process for doing business in Montgomery County. Many had concerns about the whole planning process and how long it takes to get things approved. I have a lot of thoughts on that, and you'll be hearing more, not today, but later. This year, with momentum from a new director at the Department of Permitting Services, we've been able to follow through on many of the improvements that we've worked hard to make, and we're continually improving our processes. And I'm proud of all the work that's been happening at Permitting Services. Our department issues around 40,000 permits yearly. Each permit can be tied to several different requests, which means our staff of more than 200 responds to almost 54,000 service requests annually. That's a lot of projects that need attention. We've developed several programs like pre-design consultation, the peer review program, and our new fast track program to help businesses of all sizes, do-it-yourself projects as well, get moving with as few problems as possible. And we're also doing a better job of engaging with our community, sharing what we do, and providing information about how to navigate the permitting process so that it's easier and quicker for you. This year, DPS launched a podcast discussing topics such as zoning, deck inspections, and adding a detached living space on properties with single-family homes. DPS aims to be a project partner for both businesses and residents across the county, and I'm really happy to be joined now by our DPS Director, Rabia Savakan, to tell us more about the changes within DPS. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Rabia.
Thank you, County Executive. It's my pleasure being here. I'm Rabia Savakan, as mentioned. I am the Director for DPS. If I may, allow me to share my screen for a few slides. See. Well, anyway, permitting is a big deal, as most of you already know. I've been in the DPS for now 10 months, and it's one of those things where we have to understand the responsibility lies in the economic growth and development of our county. It's kind of an untold secret how much permitting is an integral part of the local economy. You know, the timeliness of permit issuances, delays, can impact things. So, the county executive touched on the 150 inspections that we perform each year, the 40,000 reviews for permit issuances, the 50,000 plus service requests, for both complaints and investigations. That's a lot. But in the midst of all our daily operations, we have to be really focused on how can we improve things, as the county executive touched
Director,
on.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you can share your screen now.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully that's so. Yeah, the permitting dichotomy is that we deal with is from an economic impact standpoint. Permitting has a huge responsibility. We talk about speed, business-friendly processes, efficiency, consistency, predictability. Those are the things when we talk about our impact relationship with respect to the economy. On the other side of the coin, we have that paramount charge of safety. We exist to make sure that things are in compliance from a safety of our, built structures, our natural environment, and the sustainability also has now become pretty huge. But it's important that we strike that balance between the two. But the economic side of things is tremendous. And also, as the county executive alluded to, a little snapshot of the data. The numbers don't lie. The adage, if I can use that adage, we are, in terms of our activity and productivity, we're pretty much on pace with previous years. People wonder, with the pandemic, how has it affected permitting? We've had to adjust, as most people have had to, with going to online. Much of the functions are now moved online, and by necessity, and we've actually maintained that, and probably it's a good thing. But in terms of our productivity, we stay busy. We still are maintaining. You can see by the numbers here, we're still on course to hit that 150 inspections and 40,000 plan reviews for permit issuance. So that's consistent. But again, it's the challenge is how can we behind the scenes still do the things necessary to go towards improving the process, because it's a very important, again, as I alluded to, how integral we are to the economic development of our county. And one of the things that we're really looking towards launching for 2024 is, in a spirit of transparency and efficiency, is a public dashboard. We want to be able to, for our public to be able to see. This shouldn't just be kept in a secret, behind closed doors, what we're doing from a numbers standpoint. We want to be able to show for new construction, real time, how long it's taking to issue permits. And we're on the hook. So there's an accountability piece to that for all of our permit types, new residential construction, new commercial alterations, which of course is the big, part of our permitting piece, existing buildings. But that public dashboard, we're really looking forward to unveiling that this coming year, and it'll really help our stakeholders to be able to guide them through our permitting process and give what I spoke to in terms of that predictability. But permitting in Montgomery County, the focus areas are pretty consistent. We do a lot of new townhouses, new single family, multifamily, kind of like the region. But one of the things I want to highlight is the biotech and life sciences. It's important understanding, because that's our niche. We need to have a permitting process that's conducive to that. And that's the things, again, I talk about the behind the scenes things that we're doing in addition to our normal functions. How can we make sure that we're facilitating, our strengths? This is a technology quarter. Let's make sure that we have processes that are conducive to that. And we talk about restaurants. There's a slew of restaurants from one end of the county to the other. So it's important that we have a process that's built and set up to help these restaurateurs understand and guide them through the process, because that's not what they do. They don't understand permitting, but let our process kind of guide the way and make it more easy for them. Special events too. We have the congressional golf, things like that. It's important that for our special events, the process is not onerous and clear. But permitting in Montgomery County is more than just, the permit issuances and reviews. We do a lot. And again, I say permitting touches everyone in the county, whether you're a child in a school, a parent, you're doing an addition on a house, a new business moving, to another location, you have to come through permitting. So the process is very important. But there's another aspect to what we do. It's the enforcement and respond to emergencies. We were responding to the big fire at the Arrive building earlier this year. So that's a huge part, making sure the safety of our community is there. And we're looking at always at initiatives. We've got a few on the plate right now that will speak to fire prevention. Also, the exceptional customer service. One of the things that we're really honing in on, and we talk about improvements in permitting for the county, it's an attitude. It's that willingness to show that we're welcoming business, and that has to be not just stated; it has to be seen through our actions, through our work, how we're helping facilitate these businesses. And exceptional customer service is kind of the theme with that. We want to be flexible. We want to be solution oriented and technology savvy. Those are things that we're really honing in on at DPS in terms of concepts in permitting. And then how do we know how we're doing when we implement these initiatives? It's important that we get feedback, and we'll talk about stakeholders forums, engagement, and customer service surveys. We set those up. We've already issued probably over 1,000, 10,000 rather, surveys that have gone out by email to our stakeholders. And that is a way to gauge how we're doing. It's important in this notion of continuous improvement to gauge what that feedback is. And of those 10,000 surveys that have gone out, we have garnered roughly 10%, almost 10% feedback, which right now, they're telling our stakeholders are telling us that we're at a 4 out of 5 satisfaction rate, which is pretty good, but we're always aiming to do better. One of the things coming in is we wanted to understand what the mission is, what the vision for the county, for the department, and it was important to establish that. We tweaked our mission. Again, they all kind of like mirror the same thing. They speak to the protection, safety, health, also the economic well-being of our community. But the vision is the key thing. Where are we going? What are we aspiring to be? And that was the thing that we established to be a world-class. If you think about it, Montgomery County is a world-class county. I don't know how many people will refute that. And so we want to have a permitting department that's really the equivalent, that's able to provide that level of service that a world-class county has. And we also went to the length and exercise of setting up our core values. And these are the guiding principles that really dictate what we're all about, being consistent. Again, speaking to the improvements of the county, the professionalism, sustainability, teamwork, all these underlying principles would resonate with all of the DPS staff and to our stakeholders, and they see what we really stand for. But
Director, again, I'm sorry interrupting you again, but we have a request for you to go full screen with your slides. See if you can click something to make it full screen. Sorry to interrupt again.
Sure. Not sure what happened here.
Well, if you can find it, just continue doing things the way you are.
So what are you saying, a small?
That they're asking for you to enlarge, go full screen with the slides. But if not, just
Keep going.
keep rolling. Yes. Thank
Yeah. Well, at this point, really, just speaking to the initiatives that that we are working on. The peer review program was one of the key things that we focused on early in the summer, and that was huge because that allowed in our land development division the department to enable our developers, our owners, to set up the opportunity to, in the spirit of improving our process and timeframes within our reviews, allow the owners the option of selecting a peer review. That's an additional set of eyes that go through and screen permits, drawings that before they come to us. And so we set that program up and it's working well. We've already approved half a dozen firms that are now performing those reviews. And again, that's the type of thing that we're constantly looking at in terms of streamlining our process. We're also along the same vein. The eSolar is a pilot that's out right now for our residential rooftop solar programs, and that's becoming a big thing nationwide. And the department and the county is actively taking part in the eSolar, allowing a streamlining effort, which will enable those residential pilot solar panel permits to be issued a lot faster. We are also doing a fast track, as one of the slides the county executive had up, on fast track residential. So the concept is pretty simple. When you have smaller scope residential permits such as decks, sheds, things of that nature, we want those to get out a lot faster than the normal timeframes of a one-story addition on a residential house. So this revitalization of the fast track residential allows those permits to get through a lot faster, in some cases a day or two. And that's really was really important. And of course, we're working on codes for every jurisdiction in the state. Once the state adopts the national codes, each locality or jurisdiction has roughly a year to issue the codes. So let me stop sharing this. So we are at a point where we are at a point where we can are at the point where we're going to submit to our county executive all the codes that we're proposing, and it's important for the county to have the latest and greatest codes from a safety aspect, from a sustainability aspect, and we will be doing that as well. Can't see how to stop sharing this.
You trying to find the rest of your presentation?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to close it, stop sharing. Okay. So
that was a nice image, by the way.
Yeah, one of the last thing I'll highlight is we created a customer bill of rights. And what that is basically is just memorializing our effort to show our commitment to outstanding customer service. And one of the things that we highlight in that customer bill of rights is the ability to get a second opinion. Anytime there's an interpretation issue, we want our customers to know that they can come to a supervisor, a division chief, or even a director with anything to get that project looked at once again in the spirit of a second opinion. So we're doing a lot in terms of process improvement. And I apologize for the slides, but that's the thing. We're maintaining our operation, but always looking at continuous improvement. How can we look at aspects of our operation to tweak and enhance and streamline efforts for permitting? And we've been done a good part so far, but as I like to use the adage, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So things are not happening overnight, but progressively we're taking things day by day and making those progressions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director Sabakan. Members of the media, if you have any questions regarding permitting services, this is the time. Please raise your hands. Any questions? No questions regarding permitting services?
Okay.
Okay, well, Director, thank you so much for joining us, Mr. County Executive.
Thank you. And Robbie, thank you for your presentation. I think it's really helpful. So the talk of the town this week, and a big part of the discussion at COG yesterday is the potential move of the Capitals and Wizards from DC to Virginia. I don't understand why. When I look at sports teams, I see them as corporate investments operated by billionaire owners who only look to move when they think they have a government entity ready to open the checkbook to bring them in, or because they think they can force an existing community that they plan on abandoning to shower them with enough money to convince them to stay. These are not people who need a lot of money. You know, this is not like they're going to go broke if they don't get these deals. Money for new stadiums competes with projects that improve our community in real ways, like roads, mass transit, and school improvements. Yesterday's announcement is a real head scratcher because what Governor Youngkin is saying is Virginia is willing to invest in a building rather than the transportation system that helps carry hundreds of thousands of residents, workers, and visitors to and from that building. It was amazing to listen to Youngkin talk about the new sports facility and the value of the metro while having yet to exercise any measure of leadership whatsoever to make sure that WMATA is adequately funded and able to actually maintain operations. Doubly ironic since he knows that the list of cuts from WMATA, if they do not get support, includes closing up to 10 stations, including the Potomac Yard station where the new arena would go. So good luck getting people there. 67 bus lines are on the chopping block, 2,000 jobs could be cut if the system's $750 million budget gap isn't filled. This is potentially disastrous and a serious disruption of service to not just impact Metro, local business, our late night economy all stand to lose out. And it means that people would have to use their cars even more. The good news is that the state of Maryland transportation cuts did not include cuts to WMATA. In fact, Governor Moore has stated the state will include funding for WMATA, increase funding for WMATA by $150 million for the next 2 fiscal years, and then increase it to $250 million a year, 3 years from now. This is a big deal. This is what we need the other jurisdictions to be willing to do. People have to step up. And, you know, the governor, now that he's talked about his great victory about getting teams to Potomac Yards, he needs to put the money into the metro system to make sure there's a train going to Potomac Yards. So at least in Maryland, we're doing something serious to close the gap. I hope the district in Northern Virginia will be doing the same thing. I would expect as much or more from them. Last week, we learned about the state's plan to cut transportation funding by more than $3 billion. We were disappointed. I think everybody has been disappointed. And we know transit riders, advocates for transit, and for the county have all highlighted this as a problem. It's one of those issues I've had with state and local tax structure for many years. We should be taking a cue from our neighbors in Northern Virginia. I can't think of how many times I pointed this out. There are special commercial taxing districts in Northern Virginia that are set aside to pay for transportation in Northern Virginia. Northern Virginia knew that they needed more transportation infrastructure, and it was key to the redevelopment of Tyson's. And more than a decade ago, the Northern Virginia county governments and their business leaders asked the state to let them take the lead in funding solutions for transportation so they could facilitate economic growth. Developers there not only agreed to special taxes, they asked for them because they knew a meaningful commitment to infrastructure was essential to the future success of the area. These taxes could only go to infrastructure. They couldn't be spent on schools. They couldn't be spent on feeding people or mental health or any kind of social purpose. They strictly had to go to infrastructures. Those taxes in Fairfax County have generated hundreds of millions of dollars from the development community over the last dozen years in order to create a stronger economy. That work's allowed Northern Virginia to outpace Maryland in building their transportation infrastructure. And interestingly, they're paying far higher commercial rates in Virginia than they would pay here in Montgomery County. The District of Columbia produces a document every year or two that compares regional tax rates. Montgomery County has the lowest tax rate on commercial property, second lowest on residents in the region. And Virginia developers pay a lot more. In Tyson's Corner, developers would be paying about $1.50 on the tax rate. Today in Montgomery County, they're paying $1.04. It gives you an idea of the magnitude of the difference and the kind of revenue that Virginia can raise that Montgomery County can't raise. And I continue to ask people, particularly the ones who keep saying, what about Virginia? What about Virginia? Well, what about Virginia is they had the foresight to create these special taxing districts, and the business community had the foresight to understand that these taxing districts would actually be good for them. And because of that, things got built, money was raised, and Northern Virginia has been able to do things and continue to develop in ways Montgomery County has been stymied at. It is because the Northern Virginia counties have this authority that really sets them apart from counties in Maryland. And none of the Maryland counties have this kind of autonomy. It required change at the state level, like what happened in Northern Virginia. Again, Virginia wasn't like this 12 years ago. They got the authority to do this 12 years ago. Montgomery County and the other counties need to do the same. The transportation infrastructure is an important reason that businesses are choosing to relocate and expand there. They can actually move people to their transportation centers. Montgomery County is less able to do the same thing. All the counties in the state are now facing large cuts in transportation funding. And because of the law, they have no ability to replace the money that they'll be losing. They don't have the authority that Virginia counties have to levy taxes in order to fund transportation projects. Only the state can levy these kinds of taxes. And it's given, like I said, gives Virginia an enormous advantage over us. On a good day, the state process here never adequately funded county needs. And I'm not just talking about Montgomery County needs. You could go to any other county. But for us, we get dribs and drabs on our efforts to build the bus rapid transit system. We don't get enough to build a line. We don't get enough to build, a project. We don't have long-term funding we can say we can bond against. None of these problems exist on the other side of the river. So these are issues that, I think other counties have raised. We had a lot of conversation at the MACO conference about the need for reform in the state's tax system. And there is a real appetite among other counties to look differently at how we raise taxes and to get the authorities so they can also be able to make independent decisions about what kind of infrastructure they're going to be able to build and not simply be beholden to whatever sits in the state transportation fund. I appreciate Governor Moore's efforts to be open, transparent, and frank regarding the situation in the state. State model for transportation funding is broken and it's not sustainable. We have been hearing this for years. Now is the time and the opportunity to look at transportation as an investment in our community because of its vital role in so many key areas, including economic growth. This is another kind of stark philosophical difference between Maryland and Virginia and Montgomery County and Northern Virginia. Northern Virginia and the state look at investments in transportation as investments. They do not dismiss them as just expenses. They understand the connection between making that investment and being able to grow their economies. That's something that hasn't happened in Maryland and it hasn't happened yet in Montgomery County. We are going to work very hard to change the narrative on this. I look forward to working with the governor, lieutenant governor, the assembly, and MDOT, as well as other county governments around the state on finding the most effective way of funding needed transportation projects. Finally, on the health updates, flu cases are on the rise as we typically see this time of year. It comes as COVID-19 is becoming more of a concern across our community, especially in places like nursing homes. I think all of us who remember, the rise of COVID, the highest number of casualties, they were highly centered in nursing homes, particularly in the beginning, because it's an elderly, vulnerable population, because the staff wasn't vaccinated and wasn't getting vaccinated or wasn't able to be vaccinated initially. It meant that COVID cases that came into nursing homes often spread to the most vulnerable people. So if we see that, we understand that it's really important that, our elderly population, and particularly folks in nursing homes and the staff of nursing homes, need to get vaccinated. We're now also in the first time where vaccinations have been in the hands of pharmacies and family doctors, as opposed to the county government taking a leading role. We no longer get massive supplies of vaccinations for providing the population. It's been assumed that distribution through normal channels will get this job done. So if you're out there listening, you can go to your doctor now or many of the pharmacies in the area and get a COVID shot. It's disappointing to see that many people clearly don't think they need the protection anymore, particularly since people are still getting sick and dying with COVID. Even in settings like nursing homes, national statistics show less than 30% of residents and only about 8% of staff are up to date on vaccines. Maryland rates are higher, but they're higher because we have 35% of residents and 9% of staff. Higher is not exactly dramatically higher, so we need to raise our numbers. I want to encourage everyone to get both your flu and COVID-19 and your RSV shot, particularly if you're a senior. The county health department has a limited supply of vaccines that we're using to help vaccinate the uninsured, but pharmacies and other private providers do have the vaccines. I'd like to ask our health team to add anything they'd like to this discussion at this time before I open up for questioning. So turn it over to you, Sean.
Thank you, Mark. So what I just want to emphasize again is we are seeing this year our influenza cases and our COVID transmissions increasing at the same time. Last year, you recall there was a discussion about the triple-demic between RSV, flu, and COVID. While they did hit us, and it gave an expanded period of time in which our emergency departments were very busy and our hospitals were very busy, they did hit us in a more sequential pattern. This year, we're just at the early portion of influenza. It often is the worst during December and January, and so that's looking like the pattern right now. And of course, COVID is those transmissions have peaked in the last few years during December and January. So we're just cautioning folks about that. Again, to echo the county executive's concerns, we are working very closely with our assisted living facilities, our nursing homes, and other long-term care facilities, and we're tracking their vaccination rates. I'm very happy to share that we've identified our first assisted living facility that's gotten 100% of their residents vaccinated, Arbor Place, and we're very excited about that. And we have a number of them that are that have passed the 75% threshold. So we'll share more of that information in the coming weeks. But we really want our seniors and those folks who are at greater risk to ensure that they've gotten their booster shot this year. Everyone is eligible for a booster shot this year, and everyone should get it. We still don't have all the details about how long COVID can affect people down the line, and staying up to date on these vaccinations can help to reduce those sorts of outcomes. So again, just want to recommend that folks take those precautions. We're moving into probably the highest transmission part of the year for our county.
Dr. Bridgers, Dr. Stoddard.
Nothing for me. We can proceed to the Q&A round.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Members of the media, any questions for the officials this afternoon? Please raise your hand. Oh, there's Marianne Shazad from Montgomery Community Media. Good afternoon, Marianne.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Specifically about the proposed budget cuts for Metro, they're saying it would be unprecedented. What would that mean, for our county and our residents?
Oh, that means reduced service. Service could terminate as early as 10 o'clock. It could easily mean turnarounds of some of our trains. We fought very hard to get more of the trains to run all the way out to Glenmont and all the way out to Shady Grove on the other side. And, we had pushed back against a situation where some trains were turning around before that. we could lose that. There could be a loss of 2,000 jobs. Obviously, some of that would be county employees. You could get less frequent service. I mean, Metro came up with a list of things that would have serious and negative impacts on the counties, and the closure of up to 10 stations, 67 bus routes. I mean, that's a lot of damage to a transportation network. And they have limited means. Metro doesn't have the ability to levy a tax. So Metro is limited to raising fares. I will point out for, wonky people who want to think about this, Metro and the building of Metro led to massive development around many sites in the District of Columbia, Virginia, and Maryland. And that development would not have been possible had not the investment in Metro been made. And the investment in Metro came from us. And, they had the opportunity, and it was proposed back then, to put taxing districts around Metro to capture some of the wealth that they knew would be created when all these new buildings were built in order to take advantage of Metro. They didn't have the political will to do it then. And while many people there actually think we ought to be considering doing it now, putting taxing districts on commercial property apparently requires more political will than most people are willing to show. So, it leaves Metro with very few opportunities to raise revenues on their own. So their choice given the revenues they're going to be given, their choice is basically to cut services. They can't maintain the services on the revenue levels that are being proposed right now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marianne. Members of the media, any more questions for the county executive and the other officials? No more questions? Going once, going twice? Thank you, Director Sabakam, for joining us this afternoon. Thank you, everybody. Have a great afternoon. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.